My name is Adelene Cheong. Welcome to another weekly conversation that I host every Tuesday afternoon. And today's topic that I would like to share with you to bring up to the discussion is the topic on stresses of change. How do we manage stresses of change? Hello, hi for those of you who are just tuning in, joining me. So I was just saying that in today's discussion and topic, and also the practice session, just an idea of where we're heading, I'd like to speak a little bit about what is change, what does it actually mean by change, and then understanding the word stress, therefore stresses of change, and potentially how do we practice or probably have a clue solution to tackle this fluctuation of discomfort, maybe some emotional discomfort or mental challenges when we face up to changes around us. And followed by towards the end, when we come into practice, I would love to offer you today a Yoga Nidra practice to really meet the situation, meet the experience, meet ourselves where we are. So welcome again for those of you who are joining. Yeah. Hi Steph, hi Isabel, Joe, hi everyone. So let's start with the word change. When I was trying to research on this word, what does it actually mean? And we often say it, we say that change is imminent, change is part of life, change happens every day, everywhere, which is, we hear about it all the time. But what does it actually mean? So I did a little bit of digging and really was trying to describe this as it's a change of state from one to another. It's a movement. It's a movement from one stage to another, or should I put it from one location to another, or change from one thought to another, or changing positions or changing situations. So therefore there is a pre-existing state or where we are, position where we are, to where we might be in a moment. So that's basically change. There's nothing wrong about change. It's basically things are moving. It's a movement of, which is what we call life. It's a movement. It's a fluctuation of experiences and all. But what happens is when there is change, when we explore change, it's often when there are conditions or situations or experiences that is outside our familiarity, that we are less familiar, that we are even probably completely new to us as an experience. Therefore, that potentially may bring up some response. So change itself, it's always happening. Whilst when there is some unfamiliarity, if the change is somewhat familiar, if basically you're changing location from your home to your parents' home, it's just a change of location where you are. There's some changes in terms of where you'll be living for this few days, few weeks and all, but it's somewhat familiar. It doesn't feel like a big deal. It's usually when something that is less familiar, or that we have some response or resistance, or something that we might kind of almost worry, I'm speaking for myself, worry that I may or may not be able to cope with that unfamiliarity. Does it resonate with some of you? What do you think of change here? And also, of course, unfamiliarity of changes and things that might be passing in our experiences in our lives. Okay, and therefore when I talk then about stress, so stresses of change, what is stress really is is basically the nervous system itself responding somatically, the whole body nervous system itself responding in a way to maybe to protect, to defend, to heighten a state so that I could have a response reaction to whatever is in front of me. And therefore, if it's when that response and reaction move beyond my comfort zone or my threshold, that triggers stress, or we know that that's the amygdala stimulated and flooding of cortisol level into our bloodstream. And I mean, that's the science part of it from behind. But really what's happening is there is something that the body or mind is not able to cope in that moment, and therefore an increase in adrenaline or cortisol level in order to deal with the situation. So I see this message, Stephanie. When you say change is challenging and usually react by looking for control, what is challenging for you in terms of what's the emotion behind that statement? Are you feeling excitement, fear, anxiousness? What's the emotion that come with this this labeling of it being challenging? Yes, there is a immediate maybe a response of wanting to control. Yeah. So what else? Just let me have a look. Yeah. Okay. And let me continue with my chain of thought about stress. I put down a few points here. So stress can be mental and emotional, but that triggers a physiological response, which I was just saying a moment ago about cortisol level and actually somatically feeling tension and contraction in the body. Rigidity, like actually sensing and feeling rigidity and inwardness, or probably a contraction of somewhat. It's difficult to let go and trust. Okay, yeah, I really appreciate, resonate that. And restorative help, yes, definitely. That because restorative yoga simply, I mean, I'm reading also from Stephanie's response that restoratives help because it helps to regulate and balance the nervous system so that the autonomic nervous system find its equilibrium when there is no longer a threat for high anxiety or stresses. Hi Sarah. Okay, so that's a little bit about stress in terms of physiology, but how do we translate to now today's situation that we have, and how do we think about stress in this situation now that we are in? Let's be realistic, right as of today. The smallest little thing, I mean, stressed, it could literally be if my microphone is not working when I'm about to connect here online, or the Wi-Fi is a little bit sporadic, or Zoom is not working. I mean, that little bit of things kind of triggers stress because there's a certain expectation, maybe, yeah, that I was expecting it to work, or maybe if that's not how you resonate with or what you resonate with, maybe there is also a small amount of fear of judgment of my professionalism, of my preparation. If it could be a judgment from self or from others that that I'm incapable maybe of doing what I'm doing. So all those things can then trigger a cycle of stressed hormone that's like just bubbling up within myself, right? Now, the thing is, when we translate it to today's cultural and social environment, it's usually like what Stephanie was saying, things within outside of our control. When things are outside of our control, it's also a sense of fear. I'm definitely when I hear that statement, I'm definitely resonating with a sense of fear, because the fear of maybe failing myself or other people. And that's also roughly tied back to expectation or judgment. Yeah. So just consider how that bring on stress when there is something that is outside of your control. And now, if there are things that are changing around us, it's usually just a change of an idea or a thought or location or movement, but it might not be necessarily stressful until it intensifies. If the stress level intensify to a level that is beyond my ability, my threshold for it being able to handle or manage it, and that's where it really runs into the adrenaline of like a stress hormone going up and up and up. It also depends on the speed of change. So for example, it's not that I can't deal with the change or the change of idea, location, situation, but simply the speed of change is something that I'm not yet able to catch up with, and therefore it's not in sync with my rhythm to be able to adapt in that moment. So that can also trigger stress level. Or ideas, like just mental ideas and psychological ideas of what we mentioned earlier, like judgment, expectations. So those are the things that could potentially heighten our stress response. And again, change, as we mentioned earlier, is not a bad thing. It's simply just a movement of, or a fluctuation of experience or location or something from one state to another state. So recap. Whereas stress is the ability or inability in that moment to handle that level of change or that movement, maybe because of the intensity of it that is beyond my threshold, or the speed of it that I'm not able to catch up. So that's what we've just a moment ago discussed. Just a quick summary. And therefore, in itself, when I face up with this inability or probably incapability of dealing with the situation, the next thing that really escalate stress is actually the resistance. When in Buddhism, we call it the second arrow, and many of you might be familiar. It's not about the change or the situation itself, but it's what then I tell myself, and the resistance, the energy that I spend in terms of pushing and resisting and avoiding that situation, or probably spending energy, resources, time to simply saying no and being stuck in a place, right? And therefore resistance. And in yoga, we also call that dvesha. So in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where there is a one of the sutra where it says about talks about raga and dvesha, where there is attachment of the something that we desire, or maybe of the familiar or what we existingly are comfortable with, and aversion towards could be something that we do not desire or probably want to push away, not liking it, not my preference, or something that is unfamiliar, that is threatening, at least from my perspective, that it is threatening, and therefore it's simply something that causes this friction between attachment and aversion. Pause, take a pause and just digest what was just shared, and how does that resonate with your experience of changes in your life right now or situation around you. And I mentioned earlier that we will talk about there's a clue to it, and there's a clue that I hope that has really helped myself in terms of managing change and the stresses of change. And I'm really hoping that it could help you also, which is about transition. So what does transition means? Transition means transition is the process of the process between two states, process between two conditions. It's actually part of the change process. So change is from A to B, whether it's a thought or a situation, experience, A, B. But when this transition from A to B is challenged, or probably in terms of the speed of it changing its state from A to B is challenged, that's where we faces a high level of anxiety or stress or resistance, just because that's not quite, I'm just not quite adapted yet from one state to the next state, or one idea to the next idea. So what is transition then? How do we access it, understand it, or even experience it somatically, and in order to manage the transitional states between two places? That's change, right? We talk about that's change. That would allow me to somewhat modulate and moderate the spike in stress level, that spike in cortisol level where it's really at my threshold too quickly, or the intensity itself is just beyond what I'm able to cope. How could I moderate that in order for me to be able to at least adapt, even if it's 50% of it, or however much of it, as I move from one situation to another situation, right? So transition is really about slowing down to your pace. Of course, I appreciate immediately one thing that come up to my mind is like, yes, I can choose my pace, but there are just simply a lot of other people's rhythm and other people's pace, and things are moving on around me, and it's time's not going to stop for me. Those ideas pop in immediately when we talk about slowing down. And the fear of, I know that's a popular phrase, abbreviation now called FOMO, which is fear of missing out, FOMO. And that level of fear also can come up when there's like, okay, I'm not quite ready, and this is my rhythm, and how do I slow down enough in order to allow myself to be comfortable and to move through that process of change whilst things are moving on around me. So firstly, get in touch with your rhythm. Recognize what is your rhythm before we recognize what is the rhythm around us, and at what point we can meet. We can't, and we know, we always say that we can't change other people, or we can't change things that are outside of our control, beyond our control. But at some point, if we need to live in a social environment, we are always in interaction with others. There will be a meeting point where our rhythm will come together. And therefore, firstly, I want to be really anchored and comfortable with my rhythm, to recognize that, and then recognize what's the rhythm around me, and somewhat meet that rhythm halfway, if not fully eventually, if I'm able to bring up to speed, if that's up to speed, literally. So slowing down in our culture, because our culture encourage speeding up, so therefore there's a lot of times I find that I myself is just chasing, like, oh, okay, now we're going to go online and we're going to offer this and offer that. But then for a moment, if I just step back, okay, pause for a moment and step back and say, just consider what's my rhythm right now. I know things are changing, situations are changing around us. But as I step back and say, like, what's my rhythm right now? And what's comfortable for me to offer, maybe just one online class or two online classes. What's what's a comfortable pace that you are wanting to meet the outside society or the outside world, right? And allowing yourself slowing down as a transition rather than just, okay, jumping from A to B very quickly and therefore causing huge influx of stress level and cortisol level flooding into the bloodstream, right? Hi, for those of you who are just joining me, we're just talking about what's change, what does it mean, and we just talked about stress, what the stress means in terms of physiology, as well as stress hormones, and we just was talking about transitions. So transition between 2 points of change, like change is basically a process and transition is part of that process. And when transition is being challenged or probably not at our own terms, that becomes stressful. Slowing down is really important, Catherine says. Just went shopping at an outdoor small garden center. Other shoppers were rushing around and not considerate. I realized that it was up to me to do the pause and step back if I want to be comfortable and also safe, because the others were not. Yeah. So I can hear you. Yes, there is a need for slowing down here, whilst there's a different rhythm out there and probably driven by different ideas and driven by their emotions or fear as well, as we have our own fear, but we respond it differently, and another person might have their own fear and respond differently also. And I really appreciate you said that, Catherine, where if we were to take literally a pause and just step back and notice, okay, this is my rhythm of moving, and I'm meeting another fast-moving vehicle, another fast-moving person or situation around me. How do I still I'm not saying to retrieve back into the cave, just get back into stay at home and just not come out and meet anyone, but simply noticing the two different speed and how do I integrate, how do I transition, allow myself to transition in a way to integrate into society, into the speed of wherever you're choosing to integrate. Which means, in fact, I've really noticed when I visit different cities and communities in different parts of the world, yoga studios, students, and all, every city has a different rhythm. They just have a very different pace and movement. And as you pay attention of you arriving, landing, and really strongly anchored to your own rhythm, and knowing that is your pace of working or thinking or speaking, action, and to find a way to somewhat, yes, meet the level of whoever you want to interact with, the society you want to interact with, but at a comfortable distance where it's still manageable. It's not impossible that if you want to just jump into another rhythm, but simply that it will cost something, which is a certain spike in stress level or cortisol level that we will then have to deal with later with our nervous system and all overdrive. So that's really my idea of how do I manage stresses of change. Firstly, just a quick recap before we get into our yoga nidra practice, is recognizing that change is not a good or bad thing, but simply a fluctuation, is a movement from one state to another state, from one idea to another idea, one topic, one situation to another situation, another topic. And that's basically, we call it change. And then some changes, we particularly highlight those changes that are unfamiliar. if it's something that is familiar, we wouldn't call that even a change. We would just say, oh, okay, it just naturally flow from one action to another action. We wouldn't even say that that there has been a change of situation or change in direction, right? Because it's new, we call it change, right? And the factors that can affect that can bring on stresses because of this change is when there is a mismatch in terms of expectation, or there is a fear of judgment by self and all others. It could also be the stresses that is too intensified, that at the moment I'm not able to handle. It's a little bit beyond my threshold, and therefore I'm not able to deal with at the moment. Or is it simply it's too quick in terms of the change, and therefore it's not that I can't deal with it, it's just that it's a little bit too sudden, that the response time, I needed a little bit more time to respond to that process of movement of from one state to another state. How does that sound to you? Yeah, does it resonate? Some of you resonate with? And then I talk about transition. Allowing transition is to recognize where you are and where you're going, and allowing, modulating the pace that you are able to adapt to meet another rhythm or meet the other new situation or unfamiliar situation around us. Okay. And find, need to look at that and find where you have the control. So thank you. Yeah. Yoga Nidra can feel like an abrupt or difficult change of pace for some people, or someone who is not in the right mindset to rest. Like with some people not able to lie still for Shavasana. Okay. So what I would like in a moment to share with you this experience, and just notice how it lands in your body. Not as it's simply an invitation, rather than you have to lie down and you have to relax. So that is also depends on the facilitator. When there's a specific question about Yoga Nidra, depends on the facilitator how we could meet the person's rhythm and welcome where they are, and meet whatever's that's arising, rather than putting ideas and things that it's not a psychotherapy thing that we, or probably something that's changed therapy that we are attempting to suggest even any ideas that is not already within you. Yeah. Transition. Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I find really helpful in terms of cultivating rhythm, because I was talking about rhythm a moment ago and transition, is to have your personal sanctuary and personal retreat. I myself go on personal retreat or yoga retreat, either with my teacher or myself, at least twice a year. And I have my regular weekly small dose of daily retreat at home as a maintenance to reset. It's like a little bit of a reset button. How many times on your phone that you would click the home button? It's like you keep clicking the home button because you know that that will kind of reset everything. And that's a little bit of a quick reset button on a daily maintenance basis. But then once a year or twice a year, I'll go on a retreat, usually once with my teacher and once by myself. So I take a personal retreat where I can really drop back and recognize, acknowledge, and meet and respect my rhythm. And with that, then I am more confident and I can trust. So Stephanie, you were saying trust. So I can trust myself a little bit more when I meet other rhythms out there. and where there are other changes out there, and I'm able to be then a little bit more modulated when I move from one change, one situation to another situation. So maybe, hopefully, that works for some of you. So consider taking time for your retreat. And retreat is not like a holiday with your family members and household and things. It's really your time to recalibrate. And this is one of the key focus in when I offer my annual retreat in Spain in June, usually. One of the key component I spend time, one of the key component is really the whole program, the whole schedule itself is built around resetting rhythm. It's allowing the space, like literal space in terms of the retreat center, acres of land, of literal space, to mental space, to the space literally on the schedule, how much, how little you participate. So it's really something that I've value and hope to offer my students when they come on retreat with me, to reconnect and recognize and be stay true to their rhythm as and when they then move out into the world and meet other rhythms, and able to just a little bit slowly managing a transition also. So now, are we ready for some Yoga Nidra? So Yoga Nidra, for those of you who are relatively new to this practice, or at least new to me offering it, Yoga Nidra practice, I've studied Yoga Nidra from different traditions, and one that really resonated with me, that I've spent a good over a decade to really go more in depth, is the IRES protocol. And it is a trauma sensitive meditation, Yoga Nidra practice. And you'll see, I'm hoping that instead of me explaining it through like words, to really just simply experience it and see how that land in your body and land in terms of your experience, and see how that works for you, maybe not. And please do drop me a note and let me know how it works for you towards the end. So for now, I'd like to invite you to find a comfortable position to be. It might take up to 20 minutes, so do get comfortable. Whether you want to simply sit comfortably, lie down comfortably. Essentially, you can also do your Yoga Nidra practice standing or moving. But for now, I'd like to invite you to maybe take a lying on your side position if you're not usually, if usually you have been lying on your back a lot or on your front a lot. If you're open to it, maybe lie on your side, which is a really, really nice position for transition. And that's often what I suggest also students to do when they transition from being supine, from a restorative position, usually on the floor, to sitting, to simply be on their side for long. And I put them there for long, so that they really honor and recognize the slowness, the pace of transition practically. So if you're ready, give me a little wave or thumbs up or some response, and then we'll begin. So get comfortable, lie down or sit or lean back so that you can hear me clearly. You don't really need to look at the screen, but as long as you can hear me clearly. Okay. And okay. So just being there. Take a moment to land, to simply land in this body. in this comfortable position with your eyes open or closed, that you feel easy. And know that this is simply a process of welcoming. It's an invitation than a set of instructions. So you're welcome to listen to as much or as little as you feel appropriate, comfortable. And since you are here having the intention to go official welcoming yourself to the practice of Yoga Nidra, just officially welcome yourself to experience. Allowing your senses to be open and receptive, not necessarily grasping for sound, but simply allowing the sound and frequency to land, to arrive and land. That your senses are receptive and open so you can smell. You can see with your inner eyes, not staring, looking out, but simply the inner eyes. Maybe they are light, shapes, colors. And noticing the moisture sensation in your mouth. And also your whole body filled with sensation. Parts of your body in contact with fabric, different pressure against your body as you lie against the support surface. Simply noticing. And at any point, if there is any thought fluctuating in and out, or simply even feeling, when is this gonna end, or boring, just notice that too is a messenger that is fluctuating within your awareness, that's just coming in as a visitor in that moment. Allowing your breath to wander throughout the body. No specific location, just simply throughout the body. And taking a moment to connect to something, someone, some idea or position that where you feel peaceful, where there's simply a sense of freedom, openness, where it's your sanctuary, where you can connect to. This inner sanctuary, which I call it also the safe haven and my anchor, my home, where I can truly be myself. This is your special place where you feel joy, a sense of being and beingness. No expectations. And release thinking, sensing into the presence of this special place and sanctuary. And bringing your awareness maybe around the center of your body. Just taking a moment to stay with the center of your body. As you focus on this location, sensing into this location, is there a statement or message that is arising within it? Maybe, maybe not. But simply open to. Simply having an open invitation to whatever that arises. And sensing now into the whole of your right side. Full of sensation, vibrance along the whole of your right side. And let that sensation gradually diffuse over to the whole of your left side. And the whole of your front half. And diffusing into the whole of your back half body. And now the whole body as one unit, the whole body. Left, right, front, back. The whole body, surface and inside. Notice the movement of sensation. And unchanging awareness that is always present, observing, aware. The breath is free flowing throughout the body. Allow the whole body to breathe itself beyond just the chest and lungs. The whole body breathing. As a flow, fluid flow. The whole body breathing. And just noticing now if there is an emotion or thought that may be quite recent. Pertaining to, in today's conversation, we talk about changes. So maybe there has been some changes that you're coping, that you're managing. As you connect to that thought or that emotion, without storytelling, without analyzing, take a moment to sense into your physical experience. When there is this passing thought or this emotion, where does it express itself physically, somatically in your body? Maybe there's a location to the sensation or description to it. Taking your time to be here with the sensation that you're experiencing. And if you are open to something new, if you're open to an idea, would you step back and away at a distance across the room, looking back at this experience, this sensation, this thought, emotion in front of you as an object? That you are at a comfortable distance where you can still resonate and see, observe. Whilst maintaining this comfortable distance as a witness of what is experienced by this body, this location. And what is your experience right now in your body as you witness? Just noting, just continue observing without analyzing. And take a moment to step back into the body of experience where you can feel sensation within your body, the experiences, and alternate between being in and stepping out as a witness at a comfortable distance across the room. Stepping in, and take as long as you need before you step out, alternating. Notice the passing of this experience, movement, unchanging awareness, aware of all that is unfolding, coming and going within your field of awareness. When you're ready, let go into joy, simply experiencing a body of joy and bliss, openness. How does joy express itself somatically in your body? How does joy show up as an experience? And taking time now to reconnect to the center of your body. To revisit if there was a message from when we first started. Maybe it has changed. Maybe you're still open to what may come up. And simply allowing that space for potential. Nothing is final. And reconnecting to this special place where you feel peaceful, where you feel open and free, where you feel love, unconditional love, where you feel safe and can truly be yourself. No one needs to know. That is unique to you. And know that you can always return to this special place, connection, as your inner sanctuary, your inner resource, throughout your waking life. When there are moments that's needed a little bit more anchoring, grounding, support, love, to reconnect to this sensation of your inner sanctuary. So really allowing yourself as much time, space, and pace to breathe, to transition, and to meet experiences that may show up. And as we move towards closing, taking with you any messages from this experience, from your Yoga Nidra practice, that you would like to commit to in the next day or two. And again, no one needs to know. It's just you, your pace, your comfortable pace to meet yourself, meet each experience, one breath at a time. That there is all the time in the world. So taking time now to sense into your physical body sensation, noticing your breath. Slowly moving to invite yourself back into full waking state. The practice of Yoga Nidra is now complete. I'd like to invite you back. So take your time to transition. If you need to move, roll over, change position. Again, transitioning at a pace that is so enticing, comfortable for you. I call it the easiest transition to bring you back online. Thank you. Thank you for the practice. How are you? So just a couple of minutes before we close, if there are anything that came up for you, if there's one word or an emoji or something that you'd like to express this moment. I hope today's topic has been helpful for some of you to reflect and consider how you could meet yourself at a comfortable pace, knowing that yoga practice is really about action, reflection, action, reflection. So we choose an action based on what we know, based on our experiences, and we respond. We reflect and we respond. So reflection is as important, in fact, if anything, equally important. So take time for yourself for the rest of the day, rest of the week. Thank you for those of you who have joined. Thank you, thank you. Yes. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. I hope at some point we can meet, maybe on a retreat or something for next year. I'm hoping that I can still go on my retreat this September. Well, this September I'm offering a retreat on restorative yoga for level 2, for those of you who are interested in restorative yoga level 2 with me. But otherwise, yeah, next year maybe, and we'll definitely arrange something, yeah, to go on a retreat. And take time for yourself. Have your mini retreat at home for now. Have your weekly retreat at home, like your little carved out hour for restorative that you're really just cordon off and put like a ring around it, and like just book yourself in and for your restorative class, and just take time for yourself. That's a little dose of maintenance on a more daily, weekly basis before you have to wait for like the week-long retreat away from home. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you everyone who has joined me today, and I'll speak to you again soon next week. So if there's any other messages, comments, or things that you would like to talk to me about, simply text me, email me on my website, through my website. Namaste.